There's something you want in your life, and you are anxiously waiting for that day to come when you reach that goal. That's something that we all have in common. We always want something, and most times we can't get it immediately. We have to work for it. Just this week, I released a podcast with a man who inspired me to start podcasting back in 2015, 2016. He goes by the name of Lewis Howes. This was a goal of mine that I waited 5 years for, and I can honestly say it was so worth the wait. The question we need to ask ourselves is this: how long are we willing to wait for our own dreams to manifest into reality? Today, we're going to dive into 4 reminders that will help us have a patient mindset. Ready to dive in? Let's fire it up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to It's the Bearded Man podcast with your favorite, the world's favorite bearded man, Bob Bay. Each week on these solo podcasts, we dive into topics to help you become the best version of yourself. Do I have all the answers? Absolutely not. This is just my bearded wisdom that I hope brings value to you. Now, if you enjoyed this episode at any moment in time, please screenshot this episode on whatever platform you are listening in on. Post it to your IG story. Tag me at Babe. That's B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's, and a Y. Share the podcast in your IG story. Let me know what was the biggest takeaway. What was the perspective change? How did this specific episode impact you at all? So please, if you enjoy this episode, share it out. It goes a long way. Now, I hinted about this about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, actually, at this point. But I've been kind of teasing it more and more. I have a surprise coming for you. January 3rd, right into the new year. I'm very excited about this. I'm not going to say much other than that. But if you want to stay up to date and you want to be one of the first to know about this surprise, head to soon.staydialedin.com to stay informed and get the latest news for what this surprise is. Once again, that is soon.staydialedin.com. I will have that linked up in the description below. It's not something you're going to want to miss. And I think this is a missing piece of something that I have not been able to offer to those listening to this podcast. And I think this is going to be a game changer for helping all of you stick to your plans and goals going into the new year. So please check it out. Soon.staydialedin.com, coming real soon. Patience. I want to paint the picture. The year is 2015. I'm in my first semester of my senior year of college at Bentley University in Waltham, Massachusetts, right outside of Boston. Good old Boston, Beantown, baby. I have no idea what I'm doing after college. I recognize that the clock is ticking, and I began to start dipping my toes into the self-development space, looking for answers as to what I should do next after college. Now, through that process, I stumble on Tim Ferriss' podcast, and then that eventually leads me to the School of Greatness podcast with Lewis Howes. I fall in love immediately with the guests that Lewis had on his show back then. Top tier people in different industries. 2 people that kind of come to mind is Gary Vee and Scooter Braun, and a list of other incredible individuals. And after months of listening, I recognized how valuable these conversations are. And I began looking for a similar podcast that was more focused towards people in their early 20s. I was 22 at the time. And so I wanted to find a show with people that had found their true north early. And I wanted to understand how they did it so that hopefully I could find mine, since I was about to graduate college and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I search, and I find nothing. I don't find the podcast that I'm looking for. And the one lesson business school really taught me was to survey the market. If you see a gap or you see something missing in it, there's most likely a need for it. So maybe consider creating it. This is when I had the first light bulb moment to start my first podcast, Purpose in the Youth, which was focused on unfolding the stories of passionate people. I launched that first ep in August 31st of 2016. And truly the rest is history. A lot has changed since. When I think about these last 5 years of my life, all the dots connect back to Lewis Howes and his podcast inspiring me to start my own show. In May of 2017, I got my first reply from Lewis Howes via Instagram DM from a story that I had posted of one of his podcast episodes. I continue to show love by posting and sharing out these episodes of his that I resonated with. And we would have brief conversations via IG over the next 2 years. And it got me really fired up anytime I'd see that he had responded to a DM. There was a point in time that I had even asked him for advice on what I should consider doing in order to stop driving Uber full time, because at the time I was a full time Uber driver. And he would take the time to give me lengthy and thoughtful responses. These weren't one word, one line responses. He would send multiple sentences, paragraphs on what he would do if I was in my shoes. And he was asking me questions to really fully understand where I was, where I wanted to be, what are the hurdles that I'm trying to overcome to get there. And I really, really appreciated it. It isn't until August 14th of 2019 that I asked him to be on a podcast for the first time. I had patiently waited to throw the ask out there because I wanted to build some type of relationship with him before I sent the Hail Mary. Unfortunately, the timing wasn't good as he was preparing for his yearly Summit of Greatness event, which happens every September. And he pretty much was just head down. So the podcast never happened. For the next 2 years, I continued to build some type of relationship with Lewis, all via Instagram. And I tried to give value to him as much as possible. Anytime I had someone that I knew directly that I thought would be a good fit as a guest for his show, I'd reach out offering to connect them. Because as a podcaster, I know that's one of the biggest things you need. You need inbound leads of potential guests. And I was hopeful that maybe some of these great people that I was connecting with would be valuable to him. I saw that he was considering training for the LA Marathon earlier 2021, and I offered to run as many miles as he wanted at whatever pace he wanted just to spend quality time with the man himself. I had heard through a podcast that he was on that he and his girlfriend, who he had been dating for a few years, had split, and he didn't post this or talk about this anywhere else on his social media. So I was like, wow, I found something that not a lot of people know. So I reached out to him and I invited him to some events that I was going to be attending in the hopes that maybe it would take things off his mind. And once again, the timing never made sense and he wasn't able to join, but he always expressed, thanks for inviting me. I'm busy this weekend, but I really appreciate it. I continued to just try to build an authentic and real friendship with him before I was going to ask him again to jump on a podcast. And I wasn't approaching it as build friendship because it will hopefully get him on the pod. There was nothing that I wanted more than to somehow become friends with this guy. I would have chose a lifetime friendship with him over having him as a guest on my podcast any day of the week. The podcast was, just an outlet for me to get a chance to connect with him and to, share our conversation with the world. But if he never was going to be on a podcast with me, but we could be friends, I was game for that. October 21st, 2021, this year, I decide to take another shot and to ask him to be a guest on the podcast. I told him the truth. I had just hit my 5th year of podcasting, and I wouldn't be where I am in my life if it wasn't for him. I made it very short, simple, sweet, to the point, maybe 2 to 3 sentences. I wasn't going to send him like a 5-paragraph essay, which I could have easily wrote in minutes because I had so much to say, but I was just very direct with him. And to my luck, he said, let's do it. And so we locked in the date and we recorded it December 2nd of 2021, which will be a day that I never forget. I can promise you that. And what's funny enough is in between locking in the date and the actual recording of the actual podcast, so the time that we were exchanging email and DM to then when it was scheduled, I ran into him and I met him for the first time on Venice Beach, which was truly a priceless moment. I could barely get out any words because I was just so speechless to be in this man's presence. Now, it didn't help that I was like 5 miles into my run. My endorphins are firing off. And now all of a sudden it was like I'm seeing a God in front of me because this man has impacted my life so much. But I was just truly speechless and I couldn't express enough gratitude in the 5 minutes that I was with him. It also got me fired up knowing that we had this podcast locked in, which really was a message to me from the universe that the timing to record this pod was meant to be. If you have not yet listened to this conversation, please, please, please take a moment, maybe even pause this episode and go listen to it and then come back to this one or check it out another day. Just go back one episode and give it a listen. This convo was 5 years in the making and so worth the wait. And in preparation for the episode, I didn't overthink it and I didn't get nervous. I knew that I had put in the reps to earn this moment. And so I treated it like it was another episode and I did my homework and I just prepared like it was truly another episode, even though it meant so much more to me than words could put in that I could put into words. And what I loved about the actual conversation was that Lewis genuinely wanted to be there. And I could feel it and I could see it and I could hear him articulate in his answers that everything was thoughtful and it wasn't him just reciting answers to get through the conversation. He truthfully wanted to be there, and that was the greatest feeling in the world. There are a few lessons that can be learned from this experience of me going after getting Lewis as a podcast guest. You don't need to be a podcaster. You don't need to be looking to get somebody's time or attention. But I really do believe that you can incorporate these lessons into your own pursuit of manifesting your own dreams, because patience is not as easy as it seems. And as you're going to hear today, as I dive into more, it took 5 years for this moment. And I never gave up. And I knew that someday it would happen. And I still can't even believe, as I say these words, that it actually happened. So 4 reminders for a patient mindset. Number 1, ask for what you want. Now, could I have asked Lewis earlier for a podcast instead of waiting the 2 years to ask him that first time? Could I have asked him more times over that 5-year period to jump on a podcast? For sure. But it didn't feel right, so I never did. Regardless, had I asked him twice or 100 times, the key is we must ask for what we want. We must go for after the thing that we truly want. There is definitely a strategy to this, and it isn't something you want to annoy people with by asking them daily, weekly, or even monthly. We have to be very thoughtful on when and how we ask people. And when you decide today's the day, I'm going to ask for whatever it is that you want. How you communicate it is everything. I always suggest to people short, simple, sweet, and straight to the point is crucial for the initial convo starter. Be prepared with details if the person asks follow-ups, but don't go into a 10-minute email, speech in person right off rip. Give them a high-level reason as to what you want, why, and see where the convo goes from there. We tend to hesitate and hold back from ever asking because we are afraid of getting rejected or turned down. Anytime that narrative comes up in your mind, think to yourself, what if they say yes? What if they give me exactly what I wanted? That should light a fire under your booty to go for it. And if they decline, if they say no, then so be it. Don't take it personal. Just keep doing what you got to do and shoot that shot again when it makes sense. Quick break from today's episode, and then we'll get right back to it. Today's episode is brought to you by none other than Tenzo Tea. Let me tell you right now, I kicked off the new year adding in Tenzo into my daily routines. I have this twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. And the greatest thing that I love about this company is that the matcha helps you feel sustained energy throughout the day. There is no immediate high from coffee that like coffee has, and this crash. It truthfully feels like you are just energized. You are on a rocket ship all day long. And I have, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, I mix it personally with almond milk, make like a latte, and it gets the blood moving. You can also just have it regularly and just mix it with water. I'm not just saying this, okay? I literally am taking this twice a day, almost every day of the week, and it has been a game changer. Life can be, overwhelming, and there's tough times, and we need to be proactive to keep our heads in the right space by fueling our bodies with energy that serves us to our highest potential, okay? 64% of American adults drink coffee every day, and they pay the price with dehydration, jitters, anxiety, headaches. Nobody wants to deal with any of that, right? Switch out the morning coffee for the matcha. It helps us stay level-headed, focused, and like I said, it avoids the coffee crash. Tenzo Matcha contains natural caffeine and L-theanine, and it keeps you energized and focused like a Zen monk. Who doesn't want to be a Zen monk? I want to be a Zen monk. Do you want to be a Zen monk? Zen monk sounds pretty damn cool. Let's be a Zen monk together. The product tastes great. And like I said, you can add it with water, or you can, do the matcha latte, which I'm a big fan of. I take it in the morning before working. I've done it before workouts. I mean, it's literally a game changer depending on how you would like to use it. Tenzo keeps you alert and focused for longer than you, so you can be, more productive within your day. There's 36 milligrams of caffeine per half teaspoon, naturally occurring L-theanine, and switches your brainwaves to a focused meditative state. Matcha has the highest amount of antioxidants per gram of all the superfoods, okay? You need to head over to tenzot.co and use my promo code TheBeardedMan, all one word. That'll get you 25% off your entire order. Once again, that's tenzot.co, using promo code TheBeardedMan. That'll get you 25% off every order. And I'm telling you right now, you're not going to regret it. I'm going to make a matcha right after I get off this episode. So hopefully you're going to be joining me. That's it. Check it out. Have a great day. Get back to the episode. Let's get it. So the first reminder for having a patient mindset, always ask for what you want. And if you don't get it, no problem. Keep putting in the work. Have some patience. And when the time is right to ask again, then go for it. Number 2, the longer it takes, the more prepared we'll be. Reminding yourself of this will make all the difference in the weight gain. That was part of the reason that I didn't hound Lewis to jump on a podcast. I wanted to be dialed in for when the conversation finally happened. Had I interviewed him within the first year of my podcasting journey, the conversation would have looked a lot differently, let me tell you. I'm sure I would have handled it, right? I would have been prepared, but I wouldn't have been as ready as I was for this episode with him, having 300 plus previous podcasts under my belt. We must remind ourselves that the longer it takes us to get to what we want, the more time it's going to give us to prepare for that moment. Life is all about perspective, and this is the one you want to have while you build brick by brick towards getting what you want in life. You're going to get it, and you're going to get to where you want to be so long as you stay consistent. I'm telling you, it took me 5 years, but let me tell you, I got it, and I kept staying consistent. Enjoy the ride of it while knowing that that extra time is only going to help you for when the day does come. So the second reminder of having a patient mindset, remind yourself daily that the longer it takes you to get what you want, the more time you will have to prepare for that moment. Luck is when opportunity meets preparation. Number 3, timing is important. If there is something I know to be true about life, timing is everything. When I first reached out to Lewis, he was a few weeks out in preparation for his yearly Summit of Greatness event, and asking him to jump on a podcast was not ideal timing, but I still took the shot. I also didn't know that his Summit of Greatness, or I didn't recognize and realize that it was, a few weeks out, but I still took the shot. When I reached out again for that second time, I had just hit 5 years of podcasting, which I used as leverage to try to get him to want to be on the show. And the timing was perfect because he eventually said yes. Every situation is different, but please pay attention to the timing of it all. Control what you can control. If things don't go the way you'd hope they would, that is okay. Embrace it and learn from it. Don't force things that are not meant to be. That is the last thing that you want to do. Once again, I never begged Lewis to jump on a podcast because I wanted him to be equally as excited to jump on the show if he ever did say yes. When we locked in the pod, and then I ran into him a few weeks later, I knew the timing was meant for this podcast to finally happen. And you better believe I was hyped. I was firing on all cylinders. Pay attention to hints from the world. If something ain't meant to be, don't take it personal, and for sure, do not force it. So the third reminder for having a patient mindset, pay attention to timing because it is extremely important. We never want to force things if it's not meant to be. Trust the flow of the world, and when it's supposed to happen, it will. Fourth, excuse me. Soak it in when it finally happens. You better believe the 24 hours leading up to the pod convo with Lewis, I took a lot of time to reflect and think about the journey getting to this moment. Hundreds of hours of podcasting, a lot of stillness and deep work on myself over these last 5 years, a transformation from a full-time Uber driver to a full-time at Liquid IV. Truthfully, a completely different human. Reflecting made me even more excited for this convo, and it helped me stay extremely present during it without being nervous or overwhelmed. And even the post conversation of going out to dinner that night just to celebrate it made me really embrace what such an accomplishment this was for my own self. It is extremely important that when the patience pays off and we stay consistent long enough to get what we want, we must take a moment to soak it all in. That doesn't mean you need to pop bottles of champagne. Doesn't mean you need to get bottle service at the club. It doesn't mean anything specific. It just means to take that moment to soak it all in. Think of it like this. I spent 5 years working towards this one moment that lasted 70 minutes. 5 years of work for 70 minutes. It is very easy for us to check off the box and move on to the next goal, but that is not ideal. Taking a moment to smell the roses and embrace the win will only add more fuel to the fire inside us and help us deploy patience for whatever our next target is. There is no right or wrong way to embrace the win, but it is extremely important that we do so when these milestones happen. Fourth reminder of having a patience mindset: soak it all in when it finally happens. Regardless of how long it took to get what you want, take time to slow down and embrace the win. Smelling the roses will only help us get more inspired to get back to work towards that next goal when necessary. To recap, having a patience mindset is extremely important when working towards any goal. So long as we consistently work towards it, it is going to happen with time. 4 reminders for having a patient mindset. Number 1, ask for what you want. Always ask for what you want. If you don't get it, no problem. Keep putting in the work. Have some patience. When the time feels right to ask again, then go for it. Number 2, the longer it takes, the more prepared we'll be. Remind yourself daily that the longer it takes you to get what you want, the more time you will have to prepare for that moment. Luck is when opportunity meets preparation. Number 3, timing is important. We never want to force things if it's not meant to be. Trust the flow of the world, and when it's supposed to happen, it will. And number 4, soak it all in when it finally happens. Regardless of how long it took to get what you want, take time to slow down and embrace the win. Smelling the roses will only help us get more inspired to get back to work towards that next goal when necessary. Challenge for the listeners. Spend 10 minutes actually. Spend 10 minutes within the next 24 hours and consider how you can incorporate this patience mindset towards some of the goals that you're working towards today or even into the new year. At the end of the day, we need to believe in ourselves before the world does. And so long as we do, we will cross off these goals in time. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Questions from the Stay Dialed In community. Christopher had 2 questions. Let's tackle the first one. How to stay patient during low points. You have to trust that these low points are only going to make the highs all that much more enjoyable. Not only that, but you must recognize that low points go hand in hand with success. Think of the one person that you admire in any industry. They have had their fair share of low moments. It is part of the success recipe. Knowing that they have gone through it, hopefully it gives you a different perspective for when you are going through it, through those low moments. It should be no surprise So don't try to run from it. If anything, just embrace it. Second question from Christopher. How to keep the end goal in mind at all times. Take 1, 5, or 10 minutes every morning to close your eyes and visualize what that finish line looks like. I've talked about it previously, but I think we should all spend 5% of our energy thinking about what that end goal looks like, and then spend the other 95% of our energy focusing on the work in front of us today. Maybe some days you need to remind yourself 100 times what that end goal looks like. And then there's other days that maybe it's just once a week. Whatever works best for you and keeps you motivated and inspired, just stick to that. Next question comes in from Will. Or I shouldn't say question, but more so topic. Being young and hungry, yes, but knowing when to be patient to avoid burnout. This is something that I think, unfortunately, every single person will go through at some point in their career or life. It's almost a rite of passage, I would say. Back in 2016, 2017, Gary Vee was preaching the importance of enjoying the journey. And as much as I heard him, I also wanted to prove to the world my vision as a creator. So what did I do? I didn't listen to him. I just worked, and worked. I didn't allow myself to do anything outside of creating, driving Uber, focusing on my physical and mental health. And that's about it. Never again will I allow myself to live a lifestyle like that where there was no balance and burnout kept being masked by me working even more. My best advice would be honest with yourself about the amount of small wins that you can truly accomplish in a day. Once you cross off enough items and you feel like that day is a success, then let off the gas and rest up till the next day. It will be so worth it. Giant leaps begin with small steps. There is nothing that you can do within a day or a week that is going to turn into a massive leap. So when you feel that burnout coming, ease off the gas, cool down, jump back in when you feel ready to go. There was no pod review of the week. If you'd like to be next week's pod review, head over to the iTunes podcast app and jot down a 1-word, 1-sentence review. These reviews are really, really important in the organic, natural growth of the show. So please do so today. It is super, super important. If you enjoyed this specific episode, all that I ask, please screenshot this episode on whatever platform you're listening in on, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, whatever platform it is, screenshot it, post it to your IG story, tag me at Bob-A. That's B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's and a Y. Start the podcast in your IG story. Let me know, what was the takeaway? What was the perspective change? How do you think you're going to deploy patience more into your life? I'd be really curious to see and hear how this specific episode helped all of you. So please, please, please let me know. Excuse me. Getting a little sick over here. trying to beat through this cold. As well as I mentioned earlier, something big is coming January 3rd. If you want to stay informed, head over to soon.staydialedin.com. Once again, that is soon.staydialedin.com. Jot down your cell phone number. I will shoot you a text when the day comes and you will be informed and you won't miss it. So please, soon.staydialedin.com. I will also have the link of that episode. The link of the episode. I will also have the link to that website below. Ladies and gentlemen, that's episode 153. 4 reminders for a patient mindset. This is actually the last podcast of 2022. I forgot to give this as a call out. We will be taking a 1-week break during Christmas into the new year. It will be coming in hot back on January 3rd. So please enjoy the holidays, whatever you're celebrating. Enjoy the kickoff to the new year. Let's crush 2022. And whenever you hear this, start making those changes towards whatever that life looks like for you next year. And let's crush it. I got a lot of great content on the way, and I am here to support all of you every step of the way. I want to help you reach your inner potential. And I'm just sharing my experiences and my learnings along the way in the hopes that it is bringing value to you guys and gals. So finish the year strong. I will see you at the top of 2022, and let's crush it. Have a great rest of your day. Let's get it. It's the Bearded Man Podcast. See ya.